Okay, what do you do with Edwards here in this series? You didn't have much of an answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think Edwards is going to do what he does, and I think you kind of live with that. You know, I'd say PJ or Derek Jones Jr., whichever one is having the better game, you go try to slow him down, and let's stay home on everybody else, because I don't feel like the Timberwolves are like a well-constructed offense. I think they're very physical. I think, you know, Edwards is great. McDaniels is good. Conley is a veteran. Obviously, Karl-Anthony Towns has great offense, but I just can't let Anthony Edwards trouble me to the point that we're sending extra help at him. He's still getting 35, and now somebody else is getting dunks and layups. That would be my general approach going in, Chief. How about you?
Well, I do think it's interesting that last night, like when they asked him about it after the game, the TNT crew asked him, and he's like, well, it's going to be my matchup's Kyrie. So when you start breaking down the matchups, like he's gonna be having to work on both ends here, and he's a two-way player, and so that's what sort of sets him apart. He can handle those things, but he's gonna have his hands full with Kyrie on the other end. So I think that's pretty interesting, and I don't imagine Kyrie gets the call defensively on Anthony Edwards all that often. Because, I mean, when you have P.J. Washington and Derek Jones Jr., I think those are two quality guys to keep throwing at Anthony Edwards. And he's a guy that he can be a bit of a volume dude. Like, even last night, it's like, yeah, he had the 27 points, but he wasn't like Mr. Dominator. And he didn't have to be
bad shooting night.
Didn't have to in that game, and he'll give you a couple of poor shooting nights. So you got to capitalize on that. But his explosiveness, I do think that the Mavericks will have better rim protection than what it was that the Nuggets had there for him. But that's where he absolutely kills you. I mean, if his three ball's going, then it's like, okay, now we're in a world of trouble, because he's going to be able to get to the rack seemingly at will. I mean, against just about anybody. His explosiveness is crazy, dude. If you haven't watched much of him, and I'm sure most people haven't been able to watch a ton of T-Wolves basketball throughout the year, but his explosiveness will jump off at you. I think that the Mavericks having much more of a presence at the rim will be a huge factor here compared to what the Nuggets had.
Yeah, he was. I remember that very early in the year, the Mavs and the T-Wolves played, and I think it was right around my birthday, because I remember kind of being at home and watching, and he had a night where he was 3 of 19 shooting, and it was crazy, and you're like, oh man, what's up with this guy? I mean, what's the problem here? I mean, I need to go back and watch that. It was a game in December, I want to believe, that he just completely played against Dallas and was awful. So I wonder if there's anything that you can draw. And I know a December game is not a June game. I get that, but I don't know. I'm going to ask my friends over at the Mavs. I'm like, listen, can you go back to that December 14th game and figure out, was there something you did that night, or was that kid just off? It's amazing. This guy's like 21 years old, and he's in his 4th year already in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you every year he's gotten better and better, but
it explains why he's come out and made such a big jump this year.
Oh my gosh,
it's been building.
It's incredible. But I remember that December night, he was just awful. And hopefully that maybe the Mavs can figure out something. I'm sure there's some other games I need to remember about. Maybe
he averaged 24, 5, and 5 basically
against the Mavs.
Against the Mavs.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first game they played, I just remember him being really.
I just think now you're dealing with a different Anthony Edwards, a guy who's had postseason success. He's tasted it. He's playing with more confidence. Now he's still going to be a streak shooter. He's not as skilled as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he's significantly more athletically dominant. And if he turns that corner, he's not going to have to slow down and rehunt a shot. He's just going to elevate over you and go through you.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what that is. But I think by far the underrated factor in this matchup is the quality of defense the Mavs are going to be able to play against the Minnesota offense. And I think that is why the Inside the NBA crew unanimously picked the T-Wolves over the Mavs. And at 877-881-1053, I know we're going to get a homer bias here on the text, but I feel like the bias swung so hard in Minnesota's favor based on how these last 2 games went. and I don't think we're spending enough time giving the Mavs credit for how they're going to match up, how different the Mavs are from the Nuggets. And I don't think you can look at what Minnesota has done so far and think of this as just a continuation, because the Mavs are going to offer significantly better perimeter defense and significantly better perimeter scoring that Minnesota really hasn't proved they can shut down like they just shut down the Joker.
Right, and they're going to give you much more pushback on the interior with the bigs because they got the three-headed monster of bigs with Minnesota. The Nuggets didn't really have, other than Jokic, they don't have a big man answer there. So with Lively and obviously with Gafford, that's going to be hugely helpful. But here's a clip of Tim Legler talking about the series and just giving you a little window. They asked him, who do you think should be favored in this series? And here's his response.
I can see why people would think Minnesota should be based on what they just accomplished. But I think Dallas has the answer for their defense. I think they've got the answer. They've got the right star and they've got the right co-star. And more importantly, these are the two best defenses that I think I've seen in the postseason.
So it's, hey, offensively, you're dealing with something that you're not used to here, the two-headed monster of Luka and Kyrie, and then also the Mavericks are bringing legitimate championship-level defense to back that up, and the T-Wolves, they haven't seen anything like that yet.
No, and you're right about that, because I went and looked up this because I was curious. They played, they played 4 games this year, and the 4th game was played on January 31st.
I can add to that. Luka missed 2 of those games. Kyrie missed 3.
See, there you go. See, they hadn't made the trade yet, and then you have stars missing in the game.
The only game that Luka and Kyrie played versus the T-Wolves this year is the game that they won.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to me,
and that was still with Dwight Powell in the starting lineup.
That's exactly right. So to me, I don't think the T-Wolves have seen this configuration of your Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they've seen Kyrie and Luka for the game, and as you guys mentioned, they took the L that day, but they haven't seen the configuration that's got him here to the Western Conference.
I think the 2 guys that are going to get under my skin the most in this series is Jaden McDaniels, with the way that he can play defensively, and he won't be as physical as what Dort was. Probably won't foul quite as much as what Dort did, but he can give Luka some fits there, and then he knocks down that 3 ball, and he's the type of guy that can get under your skin there as a role player, getting it done for his squad. And then Naz Reid off the bench. Yep. This guy, my gosh, I mean, he's making Jokic have to work, dude.
Yeah.
Like, those 2 guys right there are going to, by the end of the series, I'm going to hate them both passionately.
Naz Reid is like maybe the best role player in the league. To have that kind of skill while still being a big man. He's like a guard who's giant like a center. So he's like the prototype for the kind of bigs that you want. Obviously, if you can't have Jokic and Embiid, that Naz Reid is the style of big that I think championship teams are definitely built around. Like, how much skill can you have with size? And that's what I think Denver found out. Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, really nice players. They get the championship done, but I just don't know if they're beefy enough or skilled enough. And if you're neither one of those things, then so Minnesota has your number, right? Minnesota was built to beat Denver. Minnesota also sweeps Phoenix in round 1. I think both of those things have people overestimating who the Timberwolves really are. Like, until the last 3 weeks, sure, you've had a nice regular season just like you did last year, but are you really built to win in the postseason? So you've constructed your roster specifically to try to beat Denver. You did that, right? Kind of by the skin of your teeth. You come back in game 6 and 7. I'm not taking anything away from that. You smoke Phoenix, who's like critically flawed and have to break things apart. I don't think that's nearly as impressive as what the Mavericks have done so far. Beating a superstar-laden Clippers team, even though Kawhi Leonard was out. And then the OKC Thunder, who are an incredible matchup nightmare. I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating Minnesota, but I think everybody's gotten gassed up of watching Anthony Edwards drop 40 and dunk on people, and them having very advantageous matchups through the playoffs so far. We shall see, though. All right, at 877-881-1053. Denver was lazy, and that's why they lost. Well, I don't know if they were lazy or just confused on offense because they're like, crap, we don't know what to do. If Jokic can't break down the defense by himself, which he couldn't, they were throwing two big bodies at him. Yeah. He was having to stop and turn around and hand it off to somebody at the free throw line, at the three-point line way too much. And now you have non-all-stars trying to win a playoff game. And that's why they averaged 85 points per game in their 4 losses.
There's a side of me that believes that Jokic is kind of okay with going home now. You know,
he's tired.
He's tired. He wants to go get his horses all lined up and stuff like that. He's probably thinking, I won your championship.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go back home. They were asking him questions about playing in the Olympics, things like that. He was like, yeah, okay, we'll think about that. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even want to go to the parade last year.
No, hell no.
He's not impressed.
He just wants to go home. He's the greatest guy to ever play, the superstar player. And all he does want to do is go home. He just does not want anything to do. Like, oh, we lost. And inside he's probably,
we won.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, geez, we won. I got to come back in 2 days.
It's that South Park episode, those kids trying to lose. Yeah. Oh, they suck worse than us.
No.